I gotta say, the Sejong is finally where the Pan-Asian cruiser line gets decent. I'm not even gonna say extremely good, because I think the tier 10 is probably reserved for that. But now that I've finished my grind through the tier 9, I want to tell you guys how it went and actually show you a lot of what I'm talking about here. And we got to start off with how aggressive you have to be in these Pan-Asian cruisers. I found myself constantly getting in these situations where I am overextended. By traditional standards that I would put on my own cruiser play, I overextend a lot in these ships, and it's almost required because of the abysmal range. As I got the range upgrades on the Sejong, it did get much better and much more comfortable. But the other problem then happens with the battle impact. If I'm sitting at the back making use of that extra range, I'm probably not being very impactful on the game. So I really did feel like I needed to play hyper aggressive to have any chance at impacting the outcome of the game. And we'll see later on, I definitely had some massive games in this ship. So it's not that it's really bad. It just requires the right aggressive playstyle and of course a little bit of luck along the way. I did find though that this ship didn't do amazing against destroyers or carriers. Not quite so bad as the Harbin, where I actually got rushed by destroyers, but that there's a Hydro DD around here that forced me out of my smoke. I am forced to angle to the Montana, of course, and he still gets a pretty good hit into me. And I'm assuming the Hydro DD has to be behind one of these islands, and he's going to get me killed, which is a great play on his part. But it is a little frustrating. I probably would have died to the Montana here anyway, but it's a little frustrating when the carrier comes in and just finishes you off real quick. The AA is really nothing to write home about. Most AA in this game is really useless, but on a light cruiser with defensive fire, I would hope that it's a little bit better than this. But that's really the downsides. Outside of that, it's the reload that's kind of mediocre. 5.5 second reload base is not amazing, but there's a lot of fire potential, and most importantly, these torpedoes. We're starting to get some pretty terrifying torpedo power. And using this torpedo reload boost, yeah, we're launching an insane amount of torpedoes here. Yep, 16 times 2. We get 32 torps, assuming we launch both sides, then reload boost, then both sides again. And these are deep waters that hit pretty hard and, of course, are very difficult to see. This is where I think the Pan-Asian line really starts to take shape. It's unfortunate that it's the tier 9, but the tier 9 to 10 grind is going to be the longest out of any tier to the next tier, so it's nice that the Sejong is a decent ship to play. You'll notice I am definitely running range mod on this ship, and that's because most of my games don't necessarily look like this, where a battleship just willingly walks into my range and gets farmed out. But I do want to show this one as an example, as the DPM, well, just okay, is enough to be very good when people are pushing in. This ship is very strong in these scenarios. And I'm glad for that. I'm glad there is a scenario where the ship is pretty strong and difficult to deal with. I felt like the tier 7 and 8s were a little bit too weak in that front, where they were supposedly good at dealing with pushes, and I really didn't feel that at all. So the tier 9 being a decent ship that's really good in the right circumstance, I am very happy about that. I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's an Smolensk clone at tier 9 that's just going to ruin the meta for battleships, that kind of thing. It seems like a decent tier 9, where if you push into it, you're going to take some pain. But not so much that it's just an instant loss of your ship, that kind of thing. Here we do get trapped between a Musashi and a Ruprecht who's pushing into me, and you'll notice that it's reasonably maneuverable. If you're good at using the rudder and speed of your ship to dodge shells, this ship will do okay. It's not amazing. The armor has some 32mm plating, which I'll show later on in port, but I can use that to try and bounce some battleship shells, assuming they're below 460mm. So that Musashi can overmatch us. So I'm trying to angle as best I can and slow down to dodge his shells. But the smoke screens come up very quickly. 4 smokes, and you have around a 30-35 second downtime in between them, meaning most battleships will get 1 to 2 salvos into you between smoke screens. So assuming you're on good HP, you can actually tank through that and continue farming. You'll notice I put my torps as if the Ruprecht would push directly into me there, and that's simply because his Hydro is the big threat to me there. If he turns away, I know I can just farm him out, I don't need the torpedoes, but if he pushes into me, that's where I really need those torps. The range is tough to use at long range, I gotta say, but there's a lot of battleships that sit bow in, reversing, stationary these days, and it's a very easy way to make use of the range. However, it doesn't really have much battle impact. We've done 100k damage farming, and the game ends. There was an Azashio torturing our flank, and we actually lost the northern flank too, so we just didn't have a great game there. But that happens a lot in these Pan-Asian cruisers, so I don't want to give you the impression that it doesn't happen suddenly at Tier 9. No, it definitely still happens at Tier 9. I felt quite useless in a lot of my games, so I tried to play more aggressive. I tried to position myself to receive pushes from the enemy team, and that seemed to work out quite well. Here, for example, we get the spin to win death mechanic. These torpedoes, man, there's a lot of them. It's a lot of torpedoes. It's like the Kitakami, is that the 40 torp launcher Japanese cruiser that was in the game a long time ago? It's a little like that. It's pretty terrifying. This Monty is on full HP, or not quite, but he's close to full HP, and, well, he's going to eat a face full of torpedoes. It's a little ridiculous. So if you see one of these things, maybe don't push around the corner without knowing what's around that corner. These torps are terrifying, and they just keep coming, wave after wave after wave. And this poor Montana, he even uses his damage control and everything, and, well, that's it. He takes another torpedo, and it just takes a couple HE shells, and he goes down. It's that quick for a Tier 10 battleship to go down to these torps. They are terrifying, so make sure you make good use of them. Some friends of mine have even been running full torp build Jinans at Tier 10, where you get 40 torps instead of the 32 here. It's pretty insane. You'll notice that I do like to play aggressive in most ships, and that includes this Sejong here. And in this game, it's really going to pay off. We spot a Kiev, and, well, that's going to be a very dead Kiev soon. Although, it won't be very quickly since our DPM is a little bit lacking. I actually end up letting him get away on some decent HP into his smoke. Just a little bit. But you'll notice we're just trading HP here. I'm not actually going to smoke up because I know I'm the one spotting this guy. If I had smoked up, he would have gone dark, and I would not have got the damage into him that I did. And I was okay with trading some HP there. I was well angled and covered from the enemy battleships that were pushing up. That's why this is a very strong position on this map. But you do have to be pretty cautious about how you play it, since it's pretty easy to get overwhelmed here. So the Kiev on low HP finally does go down to us, and that's going to be our first kill in this one. This one is going to be a big game. So we launch our torpedoes for the North Carolinas that decide to push in, and yeah, when people push into you, that is when this ship shines at its absolute brightest. These torpedoes are absolutely devastating. This NC is locked in by our Veneto here. Can't really go broadside to the battleships, and that leaves him perfectly for our torpedoes. And even though I'm not getting the full value of the torpedo reload booster here, I'm only getting one side off twice here, I think it is worth it in a lot of situations to do this. I get very greedy to make use of the full power of the spinning torpedo death machine, but you'll see here, it's very valuable even for just one side. This NC probably isn't expecting a torpedo reload boost on this ship. It is relatively a new line, so I'm not surprised if people don't expect it, and we definitely get ourselves 2 kills there very, very easily. Now that we're up to 3 kills, we have to move on and capture the B cap, and now we have to push in and try and win this game. I think I could have just settled for the B cap and holding on to that, but again, I like to play aggressive and I wanted to push in. So there's a submarine left and a destroyer left and a Rochester left, which that is a pretty scary tier 8 cruiser, I believe. Improved pan angles on the AP could be devastating to us. So I'm launching my torpedoes preemptively to try and fight this destroyer and submarine more one-on-one without having to worry about that cruiser. So these torps are meant to deter the Rochester from pushing out on me here, especially now that my battleship support has left me. And here we go. The submarine pops up, and our DPM is enough to take him out reasonably quickly, but there are long pauses in this DPM for a tier 9 light cruiser. And what's that on the right-hand side? A devastating strike? Yeah, the torpedoes are really good. Just throw them in gaps where you think people are going to go. You see smoke screens of cruisers, toss them in, because double strikes like that can definitely happen a lot of the time. And that's our Kraken already. And there's still a destroyer left. He does smoke smartly, but I push very aggressively again and manage to proxy spot him. Of course, I did get lucky here with how the battleships on the enemy team died very quickly and very easily. So these aggressive late game pushes wouldn't be possible if there was a lot of overmatch left. But since it's a lot of light ships and, well, I do pretty good against them, I decided to play very aggressively. And it pays off with a 6-kill, 250k game. This is a decent ship. It's situational, it's tough to play, but it has the potential to have this level of a game. And I didn't really think that this would be possible at tier 7. And tier 8, actually, for that matter. Notice we also got 20,000 XP out of this game for 3,500 base XP. A pretty good result. But I was getting a little tired of this grind, if I'm honest. So I decided to slap on some of my absolute best camos and flags. Some of the really good ones, like the 400-500% stacking XP ones. And we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to show an example of the armor working well in my favor. 32mm plating on the side is more than enough to auto-bounce Izumo guns, so I'm 2 bow in here, but I need to bait him into shooting my belt armor. And it goes okay. It's enough to protect the forward part of our citadel, assuming we angle properly. Of course, I do eat a couple of torpedoes here, but that's okay. I go broadside just enough to get my torpedoes off, and I should have swapped to the HE, but in the heat of the moment, I wasn't thinking about that at all. I was just thinking angle, 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 angle. Don't show broadside to an Izumo at 2 kilometers. And our torpedoes do manage to pick him up. And I'm including the rest of this clip here sped up because I want to show you just actually how bad the AA really is. A lot of these plane kills are going to be from the dropped fighter consumables that CVs get. He's trying to spot me, basically. And it's a Nakamov, I know, but it's still, a carrier is very, very strong and deadly. And there's not much even a light cruiser is capable of doing here. I don't even get a plane kill on that rocket squadron before it initiates its strike. It seems a little ridiculous. Same with that dive bomber, or skip bombers, actually. It seems a little ridiculous. I really wish there would be something done to make the gameplay experience here a little more interesting. I would really like to feel like I'm playing a multiplayer game, not just a sitting duck for someone to point and click on. But even the Sejong, a light cruiser at tier 9, is nowhere near enough for the Nakamov to even worry about. Again, on to the next game though. Back to the strengths of this ship. Look at those torpedoes. Oh, and we get a destroyer in close quarters again. I play very aggressive in this ship, guys, and that is how I've had my best games. Another devastating strike with the torps into a cruiser, and we're going to try and take out the Shimakaze. Unfortunately, DPM isn't quite there to give us another double strike, but that's already quite a few double strikes, and perhaps more to come. There's our first kill in this game, at least, and I'm left in the open, but smoking up was just fine there. They do have a submarine hunting around, as well as Holland torping us, but our maneuverability is good enough to sneak out of the way of those torps. And oh man, here comes the submarine. And I'm clicking. The DPM in those situations, when there's a sub surfacing 2 kilometers away, feels really, really bad. But it's still decent DPM. It's not that bad, but when you know that there's a submarine about to launch some of those homing torpedoes to devastating strike me, I want a little better reload. All right, I definitely would like a little better reload. 4 kills now, just the Georgia left in this match, and we had a pretty solid game overall, getting up to 120k, and another Kraken. but this time with all of the XP upgrades stacked. That's 42,000 XP in a single game. It's not realistic to expect a Kraken every time I'm grinding through a line, but it did work out in this case, and there's quite a bit of free XP there. I wasn't even trying to stack all the free XP stuff, so that really helped me get through the grind much quicker. We didn't even have 3k base XP in that one. Our initial Kraken 6-kill game was actually 3,500 base XP, so had I been a little more greedy and taking the upgrades for XP on the camos and flags a little sooner, that would have been a monster XP game as well. On to the last game I have to show you. This is the last game before I actually unlocked the tier 10. I haven't actually played it yet. I'm making this video before I've even played the tier 10, so I don't even know if the grind has been worth it or not. We'll see in the last video on the Pan-Asian cruiser line here. But of course, we gotta play the last game and spin to win a little bit more. These torpedoes are hilarious. I get far too greedy for them, I'm sure, but it's just so funny to launch 32 torps out in a channel where there's a lot of enemy cruisers and battleships going. I actually am dark here. I managed to not be spotted for this dangerous turn out to get that last set off from the right-hand side or left-hand side of my ship, and smoking up is a really easy way to stall out these pushes. And we take a bit of damage, but again, staying angled with this 32mm plating, assuming I'm in that auto bounce territory, I'm not too worried about battleships shooting me at these close ranges. The Izumo does go down very quickly though, and I launch another set into a Riga that is on 1000 HP. So I'm very greedy for these torps. I think it's hilarious to launch 32 into a gap like that. And I take them out with my main guns anyway. That's starting our first kill of this game. And, well, here comes more pushing battleships. This is the perfect scenario for a ship like the Sejong. And unfortunately, my torps aren't loaded yet. I was expecting to deter or stall out this Vladivostok from pushing, since why are you pushing around a corner on a dangerous torpedo threat? But he just goes for it, and he's actually not even pointed his guns at me, which is surprising. I definitely get lucky here. The Vladdy could have had his guns pointed directly for me, dev struck me off the screen, and then gone and rammed our battleship. That would have been a sick play, honestly. And he was a little too focused on the Lobato there, so I managed to kill him. And then, who comes around the corner? A cruiser for another double strike. I have had more double strikes in this ship than I have in the last, like, year of playing this game. I never get double strikes like this. So the combined power of the torpedoes and the guns really do work quite well together. So it's important to make use of both to maximize this ship. If you're just spamming the guns from the maximum range, I think you're going to have a bad time. I know I certainly did. It's these closer range engagements. There's definitely scarier, more difficult to pull off. But that is how I got the most out of the Sejong. And it really did work very well for me in a lot of these games. We're having a tough time on the Harbin. That small superstructure is a little difficult to hit, and that's the only place I'm going to do damage here. But that is going to be my 4th kill in this game as we pick it up. And yes, I actually do manage to get 3 Krakens in the time with Sejong. That's a lot. And in fact, the last Kraken and this Kraken that you're seeing here happened in back-to-back Sejong games. There was, I believe I played a Kurfürst game in between these, but yeah, I had a Kraken in the Sejong, played a GK game, and then I came back and had another Kraken. So that certainly made the grind a little easier, and I won't lie, that probably is impacting my impression of this ship. So it might be a little worse than I'm saying, but it certainly worked out for me, and that's really all I can say about it. It's a solid ship when played aggressive in the right situation. Of course, I did die a lot in those aggressive plays, trying to figure out the limit that this ship actually can get to. And another massive XP game, even though we didn't have a ton of base XP yet again. So the armor that I have been talking about is this 32mm plating. It's on the tier 9 and tier 10, much like the Austin, the steel premium tier 10 ship. you get a 32mm plate, and it doesn't help at range when these shells are plunging, but as far as close range is concerned, angling enough to auto-bounce most armor piercing is going to do a great job of letting you survive in these close quarters engagements. It's not perfect, but the 30 or so second downtime between smokes, combined with this armor plating, really makes for a difficult ship to take down if you're trying to push into it. If this ship's pushing into you, it's a little different story, a little easier to kill these for sure. As for the commander, it's the exact same one that I've been using all the way up. I've managed to get him up to 20 points. Once I reach 21, I'm definitely going to be taking heavy HE. It's a free upgrade on all of these ships since the gun caliber is so low. It's just a free 10% boost to the damage output. You could try running the full torpedo build. I've seen that meme from some of my friends, and it's worked actually very, very well for them. But as far as a standard build, I think playing for some guns, some torps is really good. And of course, trying to survive as much as possible. Superintendent, I think, is a must. Concealment as well. Even Survivability Expert. The improved SE here is quite nice, since the HP on a lot of these ships is quite low. As for the upgrades I was using on the Sejong, it looks like this. Definitely running propulsion mod, concealment, range, and I think that I'll probably try this on the Jinan as well. Still have not played any games in this thing. So looking forward to that over the weekend, and we'll see what it looks like next week. But the tier 10 definitely gets a big upgrade in the DPM since it's a 3.5 second reload base. And this is probably too much range, so I might even swap down to the reload mod. We'll see. But as for the Sejong, it was a great grind. Certainly helped by the multiple Krakens I got. I won't lie, that probably is influencing how I feel about the ship, but at least it was a decent experience at worst. It's a decent tier 9 to grind through, much better than the tier 7 and the tier 8. So that's been my experience grinding through up to the Jinan. I have it now. Let me know what you think if you've grinded through this. But as for free XPing through it, I'd probably recommend, if you have it, free XP to the tier 9 and maybe the tier 9 plus some range mod. And then you could probably work your way to the tier 10 quite easily. I think that's probably my suggestion. But again, check back next week and I'll have some videos on the Jinan as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.